So today we will see with this, what do you call it as forms. You know what is a form, is it? Mainly we use a form is, you want to form, to accept some input from the user, we use the forms, okay? Just like, we see the application forms when you go to any institute or any place, colleges or any this one. So first thing is they ask you to fill up a form. So it is something like they need some they need to collect some information from you. Okay. Instead of just giving a white sheet of paper and asking like, you fill the details or something. So we give a kind of organize this one. So we have the information, what has to be entered, enter your name, your gender, your occupation, your salary, or whatever it is, your what is a thing. And then so now when the end user sees that, it becomes more easy to fill that particular information, and whatever the information is filled in the form is more relevant to the receiver end. Okay, if he just gives a white sheet of paper and fills, so the person who's filling, he might not know what exactly information is needed for him, and that person will be receiving a lot of other information and things. He might not be receiving what exactly he is looking for. So in that case, to ensure that we collect the right input in the right easier way, we use this particular form. Easier way in the sense like in the forms, some places we give the options for the user to do a selection. So how did you come to know about this particular training institute? I say through the FM or newspaper or through the colleagues. Okay, so we can come to know, okay, what media is playing, how much of role in this particular thing, and so on. So we give like so an option like for doing the selection. So that is the main objective of having the forms. So we'll see how do we work on forms in VBA using the VBA code. So here it says the definition. A form is a custom built-in dialog box. So we have seen them like a message box. Okay, that was a message box. It was having a kind of a box, which was having a kind of a frame with the X and minimize and maximize button. And it was having some kind of a text and a button, okay, okay, or cancel, or something. Okay, it was either displaying a message, or when you look into the input box, it was just again having one more box to feed in the data. Whatever the user data has to be fed in. Okay, so now makes user data entry more controllable for you and easy for the user. In this chapter, we'll see design how to create a simple form and add the data into the Excel. Fine. See, we can use it like, we use the input box, which was a custom dialog box, rather I can say. So which was just accepting only one value, only one text. But say example, I want to open say I want to unprotect a sheet. If you want to unprotect a sheet, if you remember, like, we took the password, and the password we took it through the input box. Now, what I want is, I want to read this particular password not through the input box. I want to read it through this one. Not in focus. Okay, so I want to read this particular input from the user. So generally, like I want to have a kind of a input box. So that is where exactly we use this particular thing. So how do we use this particular form to extract some input from the user? We'll look into this particular thing. Okay. So it's something like, we are just seeing like what exactly is a form and how do we create a form and how do we invoke a form. So now, before I get into a practical thing, so I have just created a form to accept some details from the user. So I just want to ask the user to enter the first name, last name, department ID, date, amount, description, timestamp. That is the time when exactly the data was filled, and whether the receipt. Something like, this is when an employee goes on a trip, official trip. So he claims for his convenience. Okay, conveyance. So when he claims, he needs to provide his details, which department, when he had went, okay, whether he has produced a receipt for that or thing, what was the actual amount of expenses, and what is the description, why the expenses was there, and when exactly the claim was happened. So now, instead of entering this data into Excel, what is that we have done is, I've just called a form here. Okay. Now in the form, we'll just try to feed the data. So let me feed the data. Say I say Muhammad. just entering my data. I say which department I belong to. I say I belong to IT support. Fine. So date. Now, what is the date? Say today is 14. So if I just say 14/4/2020, so you can see what happens is like, and I say I'm claiming for expenses of say around say 4,500. Okay, so I'm producing a receipt for that also, and the description. I just say official. I don't know what. Okay. Now, as soon as I say okay, I want this particular data to be stored into this. So you can see the data has gone here and it has been stored. Okay. So now what is the advantage of using the form is you want to accept some input. A form is the easy way to receive the input from the end users. Okay. The other thing is, see, he enters the data like I just say he says he doesn't enter the last name. Okay, he selects some departments. Again, you can see in the department we have defined a kind of a group of enumerated values. I have defined a drop down, and we are telling you can select any one of the value from this. You cannot type your own values. Okay, thing. And then I say a date. If I enter instead of telling us 14/4, if I just say 14 say 4/2020. So whether this is a valid date or not. If it is invalid, it should not accept this particular date. Yeah, fine. So if I say amount, I'm just giving something, a description. Okay, I think. Now check a receipt, whether it's produced a receipt or not, yes or no. So we have just made it more clearly, and an easy way to enter. So now when I say okay, you can see what happens. It says please enter the last name. Means not only like it makes it easy for the user to feed the data in, but at the same time we can apply some kind of validations. So what are the validations I have done here? So I have ensured that all the fields should not be left blank. Okay, so I'm asking the user to please enter the last name. Okay, only when the user enters the name, I just say take it from here. I just say Sabi. So now if I just say as okay, please enter the description. That means that it is mandatory that description why exactly you're claiming this. Now let us do one thing is if I just say 14/14. Let me have some description. Now you can see amount box must contain only numbers. So you can see you can do we have done a validation. Last name should not be left blank. The description should not be left blank. Amount, it is not blank, but the data what it is what? It is not a numbers, it is character data. Now if this is a character data, then how you say the amount box must contain only numbers. So we have given a validation telling that text box should not accept non-numeric values. So if I enter numbers, fine, now it should be fine. Now date box must contain a valid date. So what is happening here? So in the date box, okay, we have given a date 14/14/2020. What is this 14/14? 14 cannot be a month. 14 can be a day, but it cannot be a month. So now, okay, that is like it's not in the proper format and it's not a valid date. Rather, first thing. So if I say now it is 14/4, when I say okay, you can see it has been gone. Okay, so what is happening is before I could put the data into this, we are also doing some kind of a validations. This is what is the plus point of creating the forms and reading the inputs through this particular forms. Now we'll see how exactly we'll create this particular forms and how do we invoke this particular kind of a form. Okay. Now we'll see like how do we get into the form and how do we create this kind of a form. For doing this, I'll get into my developer tab. I'll go to my Visual Basic. Okay, so as usual, we'll get into the Project Explorer to see all my project window. And you can see in this, so we have a worksheets and workbook and thing. And you can see there is a modules also where we write the module code. Apart from that, there is the forms. Okay, so you want to include this particular form. So what is that we do? We just click on insert and we have the user forms. So if you want to add the form here, so this is how you add the form. We click on the insert tab in the VBA. Under the insert tab, we have the user forms. And when you hit on this particular user form, a new user form gets added. Okay, so let me add a new form. If I want to add a form, I just go to the insert I'll just say a user form. A new form is being added. Okay, what is the name of that form? It says user form 3. So this is the new form which has been added. You can see new form has been added. Now, when the form is added, you can see with the form, we do also have what you call it as a toolbox. Toolbox means a set of tools to create this particular UI, user interface, or we call it as GUI, GUI. So it stands for graphical user interface. Okay, not GUI, it is GUI. GUI, graphical user interface. Now, in this particular graphical interface, you can see we have different set of controls with the help of which I can design a form. So that means when you look into the form, what we saw here, so we have the different types of controls. So we call these controls are the labels. So generally when I talk about labels are nothing but a controls which is used for displaying some caption, some text to the user. Whereas we do also have a text box. Mainly we use the text boxes to accept the input from the user. We want to take some inputs from the user, we use a text boxes. We have something called as a drop down list or a combo box to have a list of options where we can allow the user to select the option. Okay, and then we say this is a checkbox. Okay, this is a text box with the multi-line. Okay, we have just used it. So similar to that, you want to create it, so you can just do something. So imagine like, I want to have a form which will do the addition of two numbers or okay, something. So what I do, I'll just select this label, place it on the form. Okay, and then see, you can see the label by default is showing as label 1. Now you want to change how it looks. Okay, so when you see here, it says first name, last name. So I want to change the look and feel of this. So I want this to ask the user to enter the name. Okay, so in that case, what will I do? I'll just select this particular. I'll just say F4. F4 is to get into a properties window. So generally when I talk about the properties are nothing but the characteristics of an object. Okay, so you can see here, there is a built-in class called as a label in VBA, and label 1 is the object of that class. Okay, so Microsoft VBA has provided us with a ready-made class called as a label. Okay, what is the class? Generally, class is a collection of properties and methods. Now, if you want to access the members of that, we need to create an object of the class. So now you can see when I place this particular label 1, that is an object of which belongs to this particular class. Now, when you select that particular label, this will show me all its characteristics, like how a label is. So like example, I have a background color, the back style, okay, back color, border color, a caption. Caption is what is the text which has to display 4 color. The text color, font, how you want to change the font style, size. So we can define. So these are some of the characteristics what it is. Okay. So now I want to have this particular label which is asking the user to enter your name. Okay, so what I do, I just want to change the caption how it is. So I just select the label and I have a property here called as caption. So you want to have some kind of a text, your own custom text into this. So what I do, I need to select this particular label and then get into this particular thing called as a caption. And then we say, what is that caption it has to be. So I say, I want the caption to be as enter. So you can see it says enter your name. So now you want to do some kind of a good looking features for this. So what we can do is, so we have this 4 color. 4 color is a text color. Okay, so I want to say change the font of that. So I just click on the font. So font style, size, everything is there. Yeah, so this particular font we are trying to do. So I say I want to make it bold. I want to increase the size of this particular thing. Say, okay. Okay, I think 12 is big. 10 should be okay. I think that okay. I have asked the user to enter the name. This is a caption. Now, when the user reads it, he is going to enter the data. So you want to read the data. We have, this is the label. Okay. Now for a text box, this control is a text box control. That is with A, B. So this is a text box control. Okay. So what I will do here is, I just select this particular. I just place it over here. Okay. So that means the user is going to enter the data in this particular. Okay. Now when the user enters the name, he is going to confirm that, okay, I have entered the name. So now what I will do is I'll just try to have a button there. So just to say submit, okay, or something. So you can see we have a control called as a command button. So I'll just place this onto a form.
Sadiq, sorry, my network went off. Can you just show me that entire name, that the command box where it is?
Where? Here. This is a
Yeah.
command button. This is a label. This is a text box. This is a command button. Okay. I just for dragging it, just click on that, drag and drop it onto your phone. That's it. Okay. So now I just say submit. Okay. I just want to rename this as a submit. So what I do, I just get into the properties. So the shortcut way key to get into the properties is F4. F4 is a shortcut key to get into the properties of this particular. So for getting the properties, what I need to do, first I need to select this. You can see I've selected this control and then I press F4 from my keyboard. When I press F4, okay, it opens this particular window. That is your properties window. It opens this properties window. Fine. So now in the properties window, so I want to change the caption, say submit. Okay. So I'll just go to the caption property here. I just say submit. Okay, so it is looking very small in this one. So you want to increase this. I just go to the font and say what is the kind of font style that you want. Okay, I've just created this particular simple form. Now what I want is, okay, when the user enters the name and says submits, I just want that particular data to be shifted into my Excel cell. Okay, from where you're calling, so onto that particular cell. So I want this to be shifted there. Okay, so what I will do is, okay, so on the click of this button, so when I double click on this particular button, it takes me to the code. Okay, this is again a subroutine, like how you created a macros. So it starts with the keyword as sub and ends with the end sub. So what is private here? Private is just a scope, like, you know, you want to protect, okay, the security, this one. So when I say private, that means this procedure can be accessed only within this particular file. It cannot be accessed outside, or only within this particular module where you're using it cannot be accessed. Whereas when I say public, it can be accessed across. So that can be even made as optional. Fine. So command button one click. When you click, that is command button one is see name of this particular button, and click is the event. So that means this is actually nothing but an event. So that is when you hit on this particular command button, that is when you click on this particular whatever you write in between that is going to be executed. So it's an event driven programming. So this particular will be called, okay, based on this particular action. That is whenever we click on this particular command button. So whenever the click happens on this particular button. So now I say when this happens, so what I want to do is I just want to display onto a cell, that is active cell. Whatever the name is entered, I just want to display. So I just say active cell dot value. So if I'm not using offset, it is going to take the current active cell. Is equal to, what is that? I just say hello. I just want to print hello. Okay, I've just written this on the click of this particular form. That is on the button. So now, how you are going to invoke this particular form from my what do you say, Excel? How do we call this particular thing? Now to call this, we need to have a macro. So right now, what happens is, so this is a form. Okay, whatever you have, you cannot call this. Only you can call whatever is declared in the module. So what I will do is, I'll just try to create a sub procedure, that is a macro. I say sub call for the form. I want to call the form. I'm just creating a new procedure. And in that one, what is the name of the form? So just know what we created. The name of this is user form 3. You can use this, or you can rename this particular form to whatever the data it contains. Okay. So now I'll say is we are doing this module. In the module, I just say as user form3 dot show. So that means I'm calling that particular form and then I'm invoking the show method. So this method is going to just display that particular form. Okay. So now you want to invoke in your program. So what we do, okay, we can assign the macros. Any this one can be done. You want to assign a macros, you can just say call form. No, what is that we have given? We have given the macro name, it's called as called form. I just select this, say add, so you can change this, no color or something. I just use something with sorry, it's here. So when you hit on this, you can see it is going to call the form. And when I enter the name, I say Muhammad Sadiq. And as soon as I hit on this particular submit, sorry, value. Yeah. So it is printing hello. The reason is on the click of this, say the button, I am writing hello, or you want to write whatever the data is there in the text box. Now I'm using this called as textbox1.text. What is this textbox1.text? So that is, see, when I have placed this control, every control has a name. Okay, see, we have two many characteristics here. One is the name. Name is used by the code. So that means the name of this label is label 1. So name of this particular text box is the text box 1, and name of this button is command button 1. Okay, we can rename this particular text. Instead of text box 1, I'll just say it's a text box for name. It's a txt name. So that means the text box of the name. So what I will do here is, okay, so I'll just say txt name, whatever the data is there in the txt name dot text. Okay, the text value from the txt name get into my Excel cell. That is what we are trying to do. So if I try to run this particular macro, what is the name of the call form? I just say enter the name. Say okay, submit, say submit. I can also use the other types of controls. Like say example, I have a radio buttons. Okay, radio buttons are what? So in a group of items, it allows you to have only one selection. We can select only one control from the group. So this is like, gender. So the user can have any one of the gender. Okay, so we're in a multiple options. So you want to allow the user to have a single option. So that is where we use the radio buttons. Like say example, I'll just I can just copy this control and say paste it, so that I don't have to waste the time in designing this and all these things. So I just say instead of enter your name, I just say okay. Yeah. So select the gender for that. Or you just want to say gender functionality also. So now in the gender, it says I have two option buttons here. Now you want to display this option button as male and this as female. I just select this, get into the properties, and there you have this particular property called as caption again. So you can say what is the caption. I say male. Okay. Should be one caption. So the other one I say should be female as a caption. Male and female. Okay, so now you want to allow the user to have only one selection from this particular thing. So what happens is when you see in the radio buttons, it allows by default to have only one selection. See, when I select the other one, this one goes off. At any point, we can have only one selection. So I want to know what is being selected. I want to know what is being selected. So in that case, what is that we do? Okay, I want to make one as a default selection. So we have something called as value. Value, I just make it true. And I say true. So that means it has been selected. So when I make this value property, if I change the value to true, so that means the selection is there. If I say false, the selection will not be there. By default, all the radio buttons will be false, but I wanted to have one as a default selection, one radio button, and made it as true. So if I try to make the other one as true, so the first one will become false automatically. If I want this and this as true, that is not possible. If I select this and if I select this and make it to true, what is that value? If I say make this also to true, so you can see what happens. This becomes true. This automatically becomes false. Okay, so that means it says at any point of time you can have only one true. Okay. Okay, so this is like, where you want to take the input from the user, where I want to give the option for the users, like, you can select any one of the options from this. Okay, like, it might be your skills, your graduate or undergraduate or a thing. So you need to select one of the option from that. So you want to have any place where you want to allow the user to have a single selection, we can use this particular radio buttons.
Okay.
Okay, that is what. Now I want to know what has been selected. So whatever is selected, that I want to print into the form. So in that case, what I will do is I just go, I can even go in the form submit button. So here I can just check if the name of this particular radio button is going to be like, say, radio button 1. Or what is the name of the button? So what is the name of this button? So name of this button is option button. So the name of this is option button 1. Okay, so I'll just check whether it has been value is true or false. So at any point only one will be true. I'll just say if option button 1 dot value, that means the value of that is equal to true. If the value is true, that means if it has been checked, then what it has to do. Okay, so now I just say from active cell dot offset. So that means I want to push down. That is below the name. I want to pass the gender. So offset, and I say one row down, and in the same column. Okay. So I want to say dot value is equal to. So you can just say it as male, IP or whatever it is. If the option 1 is true, if it is not true, then second should be true. Else. Okay. Okay. So now I say active cell dot offset 1 comma 0 dot value is equal. If that so that means if it is true, I want to print male. If it is not true, I want to print as female. Okay. So now you can see when I try to run this particular form. If I try to run this particular form, so I just say John, I say female. Where is your cursor? It says John is female. If I select this,
okay,
Sam, and before calling this, speaking this thing, Sam is me. So that is to know what is being selected. So that means what I've done here is the name of this particular button is your option button 1. And to know whether it has been checked or not, we have this particular value property. Okay, and the value property will be true if it has been checked, it will be false if it is not has been checked. So we have the value property of this particular option button. So with the help of this, we can come to know whether it is
Okay.
selected or not selected. Fine. The same way, like you want to have a list, a drop down. Okay. See, other thing is like, you can have a checkbox. See here, in the case of a radio button, so only one option can be selected. If you select the other one, the previous one gets deselected. So at any point of time, you can have only one selection. Fine. Chalo. So next thing is what I want to have check or uncheck. So we have something called as a checkbox. So that is in this one. We have this option called as the toggle button, or we have checkbox. So checkbox is what, like something like status. Have you completed the project? Yes or no? Okay, where you want to have either yes or no to either of the option, we use a checkbox where the user is going to either select or deselect. Okay, see again when you're installing some software and all, so you'll have a lot of terms and conditions that says, do you agree yes or no? So when you say check, that means you agree, you have read and you have agreed. If I uncheck, that means okay, you have not read and not agreed. Okay, so something like that. So we use this particular checkbox, and now to know how the checkbox is been selected or not. So again, this has this particular property here called as value. So when I say false, that means unchecked. When I say true, so that means it is checked.
Yeah.
So you can see when I make this to true, it is being showing as checked here. When I say it is false, the checkbox is gone. Tick is not there. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, this is mainly we use like, when you want to have some kind of a status, like say marital status, whether he is married or not married, or say project status, have you completed or not completed. Fine. So where you want to take some input from the user, where the output of that is either is going to be yes or no. Okay. So in that cases, we can use a checkbox. Not only that, we can also have a group of checkboxes where the user can select one or more than one item from the checkbox. Whereas in the case of option buttons, so in a group of items, the user can select only one option. Okay. Okay. So now to know whether it's been checked or not, we have this particular property here called as value. So when I say false, it is unchecked, true is checked. So you want to say like, if it is checkbox is true, what is that you want to say? I say if. Okay, if it's true, what is that? If it is not true. Okay, so I say project is submitted or something. So when I say I want to row 2 rows down in the same column. I say dot value property is equal to, I just say done. So if it has been checked, and if it is unchecked, okay.
Yeah.
So this is about your radio buttons and the checkbox. Now apart from that, we do also have something called the drop-down list. So drop-down list is you want to have multiple options. Okay, where the user, you want to allow the user to do the selection from that particular option. So that is, we call it as a combo box. So how do we get it? So here again, okay. I just go to the toolbox. Here we have something called as a combo box. This one, the very first one.
Combo box.
Combo box is what you want to give multiple options and you want to allow the user to select one of the options from this particular given set of options.
Mm.
Right? It's a list of city names or list of different types of jobs or the projects or something. Okay. So you want to have that particular list. What I do is I just select this particular box and then I'll go to this particular window called as row index. Okay. For this, we have something called as a row source. So we have,
Okay.
okay, I select this particular, what is it, combo box. I have a row source. Here you can say what is that you want to have. Okay.
Okay.
Where is the row source? Row source, we can specify what is the source. So I just say, I just want to have some list of jobs. Manager, you know, or I generally use it like this. I can go to one of the sheet and you can define the list of, say might be jobs. So I say manager, trainer, I say technical head, I say marketing
Analyst.
head. Yeah. So what I do is I just select this range of data and I just give a name, say jobs or something.
Okay.
So then what you do? I want to have the list of jobs into this particular combo box. I just select the combo box. We have the row source here. What is the jobs? I've just given in the row source the name of the row source.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So we can have this connect drop down and we can select the data from the drop down.
Anywhere in this workbook, it'll identify that name, is it?
Yeah, that is the name again. Range.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Jobs.
Name of the jobs. So I'll just select this particular list and I have renamed this particular thing called as a jobs. Fine. So now what I will do is I'll just go to my form. Okay. And here in the row source. So where is that? Okay, I just select this. So I just get into the row source property of this. PQRS. This is sorted alphabetically. So kind of fine. So here I just say that is I just define the name here. Fine. And I just press enter key. So now when I try to run this particular form, so you can see it'll have a list of that particular jobs. And you can select one of the job from there. analyst. It's fine.
Got it.
I want this data also. What is he working also into my this one? So you can take the help of this particular same offset and you can push the data into Excel. Okay, clear? So these are some of the controls. Okay, which is there. There are many controls like this. Okay, we'll just see now how do we how I have created this particular form. Okay, the form which we saw now. Okay. Okay. So now in this form. This should be yeah. Yeah. So I'll just show this particular example, how exactly the code I have written and how we are managing this particular thing. So I'll just get into my developer tab. So I'll just get into my Visual Basic. So now you can see the form is designed like this. So now the form is being designed something like this. So I say this is my expense form and the form has a name. So what is the name of this form? So you can see the name of this form is, when you have selected the name, it shows me what is the name, FRM expenses.
Yeah.
You can see that is the same name here. Okay. So now I have this particular set of controls here. So what is this? This is a text box. So text box is mainly used for accepting some input from the user. Whereas a combo box is used for allowing the user to do the selection from the list. We use a combo box. Okay, again, I have used all these are text boxes. So this is a text box with a multi-line, and this is a checkbox where I want to allow the user to give the option whether he is submitting with the receipt or not, yes or no. Okay, so that is the reason I've just used this particular controls. So now let us see how exactly I have written this particular code and how exactly this code is working. So now you can see I have just designed this using the labels, text boxes, a combo box, and a checkbox, and the buttons. Now I want this to be code to be submitted like once I display the form. Okay, the user is going to fill this particular data and they are going to hit on the OK button. When they click on the OK button, I want the data to be loaded into the Excel sheet. Okay, so how the code is been written, I'll just so now I have gone to the various controls. See, when you're writing the code, see every control has a name. So what is the name of this particular button here? So I have selected this particular control, the OK, and you can see name of this is CMD OK. When I select this particular text box, okay, see, like, by default, whenever you place any control, it will get a default name. Like if you want to place a control, what is that? I'll just select a toolbox. I'll select say text box. When I place a text box, see what happens, the name of this text box, okay, name of this particular text box, whatever you have placed is text box 1. Since it belongs to a class of text box, by default, the name will be given as text box 1. If you add a second text box, it is going to be text box 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, but what I have done is I have gone here and I have renamed this particular text box. That is what I have done for this. So I have named this particular controls as txt first name. That means this is a text box for storing the first name. So when I focus on this particular control, it is telling it is the txt last name. So this is your CBO department, since it's a combo box for a department, txt date, txt amount, txt description, or a checkbox. So you can see chk receipt. And this is a CMD OK, command button OK. This is a command clear, this is a command cancel. Fine. So now what I want is, okay, on the click of this, okay, now this data has to be, whatever the data is being fed in, it has to go to the Excel sheet, okay, and it has to be added. So how it will be added? So before that, I think I'll run once again this particular thing, and then I'll show you. See, like, let me fill this particular form. So if I just say the name as, if I just enter my name, say Sadik, say department, I say which department is working for, say fine, I say date 1/4, I say 2020, chalo, and I say amount, I say I'm looking for 4,500. So fine, I'm submitting a receipt. I say description, I say travel, something. I just say okay. I can see. Okay. Now what happens is I wrote the data. Okay. And when I click on the OK button, So what it has done is the data has come in the last row of my sheet, in the sheet. So what it has to do is it has to go to this range of data. So there it has to go to the last row. From there, it has to move to the next empty row. And from there, it has to start filling. The first name has to come here. The last name has to go here. The department name has to come here. A date has to come here, whatever the date has been entered here. And then amount, what you are entering should go here. The kind of description has to go there. And here we are trying to get the system date. Okay. And the receipt, if it is checked, it will be showing as yes. If it is not checked, it will be showing as no. Will be displayed over here. Fine?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, okay. So how we are writing the code, I'll just explain this particular code. I just click on the OK button. And when I click on the OK button, so you can see it has taken to the code called as cmd_OK_click. cmd_OK is the name of the control and the click is the event. That means, so it is again like events we did in the previous class. So this code will be automatically called when you hit on the OK button. As soon as you hit on the OK button, this the procedure will be called. When it has been called, okay, this is a code, block of code that has been written. What is the code that is been written right now? So we have written is dim row count as integer. Means I have declared one variable of type integer, or it is a long. Long means, okay, this is just to store how many rows already the data is there. So where the new row has to go in, after how many rows the new row has to be added. That is just to have a row count of the data. I have declared one variable here. Okay, this can be an integer, it can be whatever it is. It can be also an integer, not an issue. Fine. Then what I'm doing is, okay, this is just going to get me how many rows are there. Okay, it's just a variable. And before the data is being submitted, so we are trying to do this if txt first name dot value. That means txt first name is the text box which is containing the first name. So I can use a text property or I can use a value. So what is the data it contains in that? If that data is null, that means there is no data, then I want to display a message telling that please enter your name. Okay, so we are telling that, okay, we are supposed to enter the name, please enter the name. We are asking the user to enter the name in this particular text box if it is empty. So now you can see that is being further surrounded by trim. What is trim? See, sometimes it might happen the user enters a blank space and then it's they submit the form. I say blank space, I want to consider that as a null characters. Okay, so when there is a space, when I use a trim of txt first name, that is txt first name is the text box. When I say trim, if there is any kind of spaces either on the extreme, either on the left or the right of that particular text, actual text, that will be removed. And if the text box contains only text, the text also will be removed, and then it is going to check whether it is really containing a null value. So maybe I can show you one example how exactly whether this works. I think we created this form there, no? Yeah. So now I say in the text box, if it is empty, see what happens if the user is enter empty text box. So it is going to display as empty, this one. I'll just run this. I'll just say empty. And if I say submit, so let me keep the cursor somewhere. My cursor is here. I just highlight it. Okay, my active cursor is here. So I'll try to call from here. So which is the form? I'm just going to call this particular form. Okay, so to run this particular form, F5, I'm just running this. Now you can see if the user enters a space, you can see empty space is there. So now when the user is entering an empty space, okay, and say cool, and they say submit. So you can see the data gets submitted.
Yeah.
But what data has been submitted here? You can see there is an empty space what has been there. So when it is empty, I want to say no, this cannot be a name. So that means I'm making the data entry as mandatory. Now user is entering when it is mandatory, they are entering a space and then they are going ahead. See, sometimes you fill up the application forms in the online and they're asking the name and I'm not interested in giving the name. Okay, you try to give us spaces and then try to submit. If it is accepting, okay, it is good. But for them, okay, they'll not know who is particular a person who has feed in the data. Okay, so I want to ensure that some character has to be there. Okay, so in that case, okay, so how do we check this particular thing? So for that, what I will do here to ensure that the valid data is being entered, it should not be blank. I don't want, if it is blank, then I want it to throw a message. So what I will do, I'll just say if txt name, that is the name, I have renamed that particular control, no, dot text is equal to null. Then I just say fine, active cell display this data, else okay, if it is not, I want to display the value, otherwise I don't want to display the value. So in that case, I just want to pass a message. If it is null, I say MSG box, please enter name.
Okay.
I just pass a message telling that please enter the name. So now when I try to run this particular form, so you can see, I just give an empty data and I just say thing, I say submit. You can see the data has been submitted. Okay, so wherever the cursor was, the data has been submitted, is it? So if my cursor is here,
Yeah.
and if I try to run this, I'm just keeping it blank. If I keep it blank and say this is this, submit, it is getting submitted. Is just export. Null. If it is null, okay, it should be the other way around. If it is null, then I need to say message, please enter your name. Yeah. If it is null, then I need to say, please enter the name. If it is not null, then it has to
continue
with the actual name. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an indication. That's it. Now I just enter empty and I just say some department, submit. It says please enter.
Yeah.
Okay, it is not allowing me to go ahead. The rest of the code is getting executed. So I just prompting a message. So now what happens is if the user enters a space, now you can see you'll not get that message. That means there is some space. That means it is understanding as a character. So now I want to ensure that if there is a space, that should not be considered as a character. So for that, what I can do is I can use a trim.
Okay.
Trim of txt first name dot text. So that means it'll remove the empty spaces and then it'll try to check whether it contains the data. Still, if it is not containing the data, it says please enter your name. So now if I try to run this, so you can see I'm just entering only the spaces. Okay, and I just submit this. Please enter the name. Okay, so
Got it.
Yeah, if it is blank, still it says please enter the name. If it is blank with the spaces, please enter the name. But if it is having some name, can be anything, then it accepts. Fine.
Got it. Yeah. So, sir, here it will even if there is one blank space, then it will show that error, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So I think it is trimming the spaces and then trying to check.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Fine. So now, when you look into this particular form, so what is that we have done is the first thing we are trying to check is the data should not be left blank. Okay. So for that individual text box, I'm trying to check if txt first name dot value is equal to null. That means if that particular after trimming, if there isn't spaces, only the spaces, then also it is we are removing the spaces and then trying to check if it is really null. If it is there is no data in that, I'm just prompting a message, please enter the first name. Okay, and then we can see I'm setting the focus onto the same control. So generally what happens, this validation will happen when you hit on the OK button. So it is already blank. It is prompting a message telling that okay, it is there is no data there. but it is allowing you to go ahead. But I don't want it to allow to go ahead. So it will immediately throw a message, and then we can see this will focus back onto the same control. And then the telling exits up. That means don't go and check for the last name and all. If the first name is empty, just say it is empty. Okay, then don't allow him to go ahead. I'll tell him to first enter the first name. Okay. Now if the first name is entered but last name is blank, okay, then also it is the same thing for a department number. Same thing for a date. Okay, we are ensuring all these particular controls. We enter some data. So even for a date, even for the amount should not contain null values. Even for the description, we are telling that it should not contain null values. So that means you're making all these fields as mandatory field. The data entry has to be there. If it is not there, it immediately throws a message and says, okay, set the focus onto the same control. Fine. Now, okay, that is what we have done here. So that means if any of the field is blank, it says enter the first name. So you can see I enter the first name. I just enter the other fields. I enter even a date. If I run this, it says, oh, please enter the last name. If the last name is entered, so now it says, please enter an amount. So now I just say, please enter the description. Fine. So ensuring that all the fields entry. Now, all the fields are entered. All the fields are entered, but it is not in the good this one. So you can see the amount box must contain only numbers. Okay. So that means I'm also checking that amount should contain only numbers. So if it contains only numbers, fine, I just say 500. So now we can see when I try to run this, yeah, it is going ahead. So I said date was 1-1. Cool. Then it is going ahead. And so, okay. And you can see, irrespective my cursor was anywhere, the data is gone and stored into that same file in the same sheet. So it has gone here.
Correct.
Okay, irrespective wherever my cursor was.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just see how that is been handled.
Acha.
Okay. So nobody is there. So we'll just look into this particular thing. Okay, fine. This was like, checking like, text box should not be left blank. And this is something like, checking whether the TXT amount is numeric. Just to check like, the amount in the text box is a pure number. At the same time, we are also telling that the value of this text box should be, if it is greater than 5,000, okay, then it is going to give a message. That means if it is not numeric, that means if it is other than numbers, and if the value is more than 5,000, it will try to give this message.
Okay.
The same thing is date. I'm trying to check txt date dot value. If the date is not date is a function which checks whatever the date you have entered, it checks whether it's a valid date. If it is not is date, that means if it is not a valid date, then we say, okay, date box must contain a valid date. Okay. So then I have this particular row count. I have declared the variable here, the row count, and just making use of this particular variable here. So row count is equal to worksheets of sheet 1 dot range of A1 dot current regions dot rows dot count. So what this will do is, if you remember this, so we saw in one of the Excel VBA this one. So this will give me, okay, how many rows are there in a current region? Okay, I think so. That values we are trying to read into this. Okay, and then so we understood about the width, how to use a width and end width. Width, I just say worksheets of sheet 1 dot range of A1. So that means, okay, if you remember, like, we are, irrespective to my cursor was in any sheet, so data was filled into this particular sheet 1.
Correct.
So there we are trying to use this. Okay, always go to this particular sheet 1, then focus into range A1. Okay, so we have the row count will tell me how many rows data we have in that current region. So move that many, okay, using the offset, we are telling to move that many rows down, and the 0th column, that is the first column, okay, print the value of first name. Okay, so the second column, print the value of the last name. The third column, print the value of department number. In the fourth, print the value of date, amount, description, respectively.
Okay.
Okay, and then when it comes to the receipt, either it has been checked or not checked. That is what we are trying to print.
Okay.
Okay. So that is on that basis, it is trying to write the data. And once the data is written, okay, we are just calling a function to clear that particular contents.
Okay.
So you can see clear the form. I'm just calling this method clear. So this method clear is written over here.
Okay.
control. So this is going to iterate for all the controls, every control. If the type of control is a text box, or if the type of control is a combo box, okay, then I say control.value is equal to null. That means don't have the value into that. If the type of control is a checkbox, then value is equal to false, because the checkbox will either have a true or false.
True or false. Yeah.
And this will keep on iterating using the for and next. Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is how we are just trying to do this. And then to call this particular form, so what I've done is I have created a module. In the module, okay, just a procedure, okay, like macro. In that, I just say worksheets of sheet 1. That means when I call this particular macro, so first sheet 1 will get activated, and then I'm just calling this form expenses dot show. So which is nothing but the name of the form. Okay, this particular method will display. So that means from my Excel, I'm going to call this particular form expenses. Okay, open form expenses.
Yeah.
So that means for the macro, and then you can call a macro using an icon or any this one. So I just go to the macro, you can see open form expenses.
Right.
When I run this, it is going to invoke this.
Oh,
I don't want to keep doing this calling again and again through this particular interface. So what I want is I want to place a button, and through this I want to call. So in that case, what I do is in this developer tab, I just have a button here. Insert.
Yeah.
We just have a button here. I just place the button. When I place the button, I just says which macro you want to call. Select this. I just say okay.
Yeah.
That is it. So then when you hit on this, it is going to invoke.
Oh, okay.
That
Got
is
it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is about the form.
It's really useful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So we have just understood how exactly to create a form. We have understood about the different controls. Like we have label is a control for displaying the caption, whereas a text box is a control for accepting the input.
Yeah.
Radio buttons, or we say option buttons, for doing have a selections. So in the case of option buttons, in a group of items, it allows you to have a single selection. Checkbox, where you want to allow the user to have a select or not select. You do have a combo box where you can have a list of items, and you can do allow the user to select from that. And then we have a buttons to initiate some actions. So how do we use this, and how do we apply our validations? How do we fetch the data into a worksheet, go to a particular range, and then write the data into a different cells? We have seen.
Yeah.
With the help of this particular forms. Okay.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I have to practice. Yeah, today.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'll stop here.
Sure. All right. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.